Hello everybody and welcome to the Mash and Drum Whiskey Room. My name is Jason C, and if you're a subscriber, thanks so much for the support. If you're new to the channel looking for the latest in whiskey and bourbon news and reviews, you have found the right place. So hit that subscribe button below and hit that bell notification so you know when I'm releasing a new video, or you could join me on one of my live streams. The third release from Jim Beam's 2019 Booker Small Batch collection is here, and it's got a lot to prove. With the underwhelming Teresa's batch and the shiny barrel batch to get Booker's back on track a bit, I'm really hoping Booker's bourbon fans like me can look to this Booker's Country Ham to get Booker's back to being a bourbon worth its $70 to $80 price tag. It's today's review on the Mash and Drum. Every year, Booker's bourbon is crafted the way legendary Booker Noe always wanted, uncut, unfiltered, and batched from the best parts of the Jim Beam warehouses. So far this year, there have been two releases named Teresa's Batch and also Shiny Barrel Batch. The third release in the Booker's Bourbon 2019 collection is called Booker's Country Ham, also known as Batch 2019-03. This pays tribute to Booker Noe's enjoyment of the art of curing and tasting country hams almost as much as he enjoyed his bourbon. The story of this batch comes from Jim Beam himself hanging and aging ham inside his own smokehouses in the backyard, which still stand today. Now, when Booker Noe later moved into Jim Beam's house, he followed suit. He would hang up to 50 country hams from the rafters of the smokehouse at a time, smoke them for a few days, wrap them up in a newspaper, and let the curing magic carry on for 1 year to 18 months. He was so passionate about his ham that he was known to even keep one in the trunk of his car. Once he even brought it into a fine dining restaurant to show the chef what real Kentucky ham should taste like. So you guys saw the close-up of the batch story, which is included in every bottle of Booker's bourbon that you get. It goes on to finish off the story that Booker liked to keep things simple, his bourbon neat, and his country ham paired only with a cracker or a biscuit. They also ask you that as you're getting ready for the fall season, take a note from Booker and try a nice ham alongside a glass of Booker's bourbon. This bourbon is bottled at 124.7 proof, aged for 6 years, 4 months, 2 days, and it's available now at an MSRP of about 70 to 80 bucks. All right, guys, so here's a close-up of the latest release for Booker's bourbon for 2019. Like I said, this is called Booker's Country Ham, coming in at 124.7 proof, aged for 6 years, 4 months, 2 days, and available now with an MSRP of about 70 to 80 bucks. So here's the label. I really like the illustration on the label for the country ham. I think it looks kind of enticing. It kind of reminds me of one of the most famous batches, which is Center Cut, which had a nice juicy steak right there on the front of the label. So I've already poured a few of these, as you could see. I've been kind of impressed with this one. So let's get a pour and let's see if it stood the test of time here a little bit. Has that really quintessential Booker's color. Really nice. All right, let's get into it. So my first impressions of this batch were really good. I've spent the last, couple days trying to see if this is as good as I think it is. I was very underwhelmed by Teresa's batch, and while Shiny Barrel Batch did get Booker's back on flavor profile for me, I still found that it's not as good as some of the other batches that I had, especially ones last year. So now this one has made an impression so far, but first let's take a look at the color. So here we go. So a typical nice Booker's color here. It's like a dark chestnut, maybe a little hint of an orange, little copper color in there. Really nice, that uncut, unfiltered. It just coats the glass really, really nicely. So far in the glass, it looks nice, but let's see what we get on the nose here. All right, so the nose on this one, since I first opened it, there's one really kind of shocking characteristic that just really jumps out of the glass. And it's pure vanilla extract that just keeps coming out of here. It's really intense, it's really strong. You definitely get some of that quintessential caramel flavor. You definitely get some oak there. So this one has a smoky characteristic too, I think, which is fitting given the name of the batch. And he used to smoke his hams back in that warehouse, which is kind of cool. Definitely, I'm getting more of that almond characteristic that's coming through. A little bit of a smoky almond. Definitely some cinnamon, some baking spices in there. A hint of a citrus note too, maybe a little bit of an orange, tangerine maybe. Yeah, but the dominant note is like pure vanilla extract coming out of the glass. It is really, really sweet, very inviting. It tastes extremely rich, and it also tastes like it's going to be very creamy as well. So easily the best nose out of the 3 that I've had this year, but we'll definitely do a little bit of a comparison. But first, let's get into the palate here. Cheers. Oh, so just like the nose, just vanilla bomb right off the bat, coats the palate. It's sticky, it's creamy, good finish. All right, first sip, obviously very good. It's stayed kind of this way since I first opened it. It's definitely stayed strong. It's given that nice, that vanilla punch to it. Let's go in for another sip here. Yeah, it's so rich. This one is one of the richest flavored Bookers I've had in a long time. Just everything just seems thicker in this glass. The flavors are thicker and they stick around. That cinnamon characteristic and that almond really comes through in the back of the palate. The front of the palate is all just caramel and that huge wave of vanilla. Sticks to the sides a little bit. You get a little bit of an orange spice there on the sides of your tongue as well. It's still tingling. You know, as a good Booker's does, always gives a nice medium to long finish. Really does a nice job there as well. Let's go for another sip here. Cheers. It just gets more vanilla as you sip it. It's crazy. The vanilla just gets so sweet. It's like opening like a fresh vanilla extract. Maybe mixing it with some cinnamon and a little bit like a cake batter almost. It's very sweet. Vanilla frosting a little bit there. Definitely some of that orange characteristic. Man, this one's really all over the place. It's not overly complex. I mean, there are a lot of flavors in here to be found, but the vanilla, the caramel, the oak, that sweet, spicy, long finish, it's kind of just staying true sip to sip. But the thing that stands out about this batch so far is the richness. It's not really, you know, on the flavor. If you're looking at all the flavors here, it's not thin at all. It's just creamy and it's thick and really great on the palate. Let's go in for one more sip and then we'll do a quick comparison. Here we go. Cheers. Even that sip. One thing I've noticed on this batch too is how easy this one is to sip. It's kind of dangerous because you have that finish that kind of lingers, but on the palate, after the first couple sips and your palate gets used to it a little bit, you know, kind of that alcohol punch kind of goes away, and all of a sudden it's just like sipping candy in this one. Sweet. It is like it's like that, like you think of a country ham. It's meaty and it's rich and it's flavorful. Yeah, I actually might try this next to a ham at some point, but in the meantime, let's compare them to the previous 2 batches. All right, guys, so here's all 3 batches from this year. Here's Teresa's batch, here is Shiny Barrel batch, and here's the one we just reviewed, which is the Booker's Country Ham. So Teresa's batch was the first one this year. Like I said, it was pretty underwhelming. This one came in at 62.95 or 125.9 proof. This was aged 6 years, 3 months, and 1 day. So I haven't had this in a little while, so let's see if it's gotten any better. No, I'm still very astringent on the nose. It just smells thin. There's just something about this batch that just doesn't really do it for me on the nose. It's very alcohol forward. It's got a little bit of a bitter oak characteristic. You're still getting that Jim Beam nutty characteristic. But yeah, there's just layers of flavor there in previous batches that I've had for Booker's that's just kind of missing. All right, let's go for a sip. Here we go. Yeah, this one just kind of comes in. It's very harsh on the palate. There's some sweetness there. There's that Jim Beam nutty characteristic there, but it just comes in. It's really harsh. There is some sweetness to it, but it's just missing some layers of flavor that I've gotten in other Booker's batches. This to me was a little bit more of an off-profile Booker's to me. Just wasn't great compared to other ones I've had in the past. Let me get a quick sip of water here. All right, so let's get into Shiny Barrel batch. This one came in at 124 proof even. This was 6 years, 5 months, and 1 day old. So let's get into the nose here. So the characteristic on here that's really kind of stayed around is that it's like pure peanut brittle on Shiny Barrel batch, which I really like. Jim Beam is known for kind of having that nutty characteristic to it. This is like pure peanut brittle on the nose. There's a little bit of a fruit characteristic there too. I think when I reviewed it, it kind of reminded me of almost like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich a little bit on the nose. A lot of vanilla, a lot of caramel. Yeah, really the defining characteristic for this batch was that peanut brittle, kind of a fruit characteristic, that peanut butter and jelly type scent that I was getting. Let's go in for a taste. Here we go. Cheers. Yeah, that one is still very, very good. Again, this one has more of that peanut brittle aspect to it, that peanut, some of the fruit characteristic that's in there. Really good, very sweet. This one also leaves that finish, but I mean, you could really feel the alcohol in this one a little bit. Let's go in for another taste. Yeah, so this one starts off very sweet, but on the back of the palate, the oak becomes very dominant. You get the peanut brittle, you get the strawberry, you get some of those, you get the quintessential vanilla, the caramels, definitely on the front of the palate, but then kind of the oak takes over, and you get a really nice oak note. But that oak and the wood characteristic with a little bit of a spicy finish definitely dominates the back of the palate. All right, let's go for another quick sip of water. All right, finally, let's go back to the Booker's Country Ham. Yeah, I mean, you try all these noses. Oh, that is so harsh. This one's pure peanut butter. This one is just vanilla caramel candy. Yeah, when you go through all three of these, all the noses are just really, really different. But for my money, this one, the nose, that sweetness that you get on here is just so, so delicious. Let's go for a sip again. Here we go. The richness of this one and the way it coats the palate and how easy it is to drink. Like with this one and this one, you get that alcohol punch. You get a harshness. This one is just, I hate to use the word smooth, but it really does finish just super smooth and easy and sweet and flavorful and rich on the palate. This is one of those you can just sip and sip and sip on, all night long. All right, guys, so if you are a Booker's fan and you've been looking at these three bottles and maybe deciding what to get, trying to maybe pull the trigger, spending that $70 to $80, which is definitely a little bit pricey for a bourbon, definitely skip Teresa's batch. It's okay. It's, like I said, it's a little bit more of an off-profile Booker's. It's a little bit harsh. It doesn't have great complexity. It's very straightforward. Not my favorite. Shiny Barrel batch, I will say. This is definitely one of the better ones and still came in way better than Teresa's batch for me. This one is very peanut brittle heavy, a little bit of a fruity characteristic to it. It's got kind of a peanut butter jelly characteristic going on the front of the palate and then finishes with just a lot of sweet oak and spice. If that's kind of the flavor profile you like, then definitely grab this one. But for my money, I am definitely going for Booker's Country Ham. This is a sweet, delicious, easy to sip, dangerously easy to sip batch of Booker's that I would actually probably put up against some of my other favorite Booker's batches, like Tommy's batch, Sip a While. Maybe not as good as Center Cut, but I mean, this is really, really good. I really think if you're, like I said, if you're in the market for a Booker's batch, you've been waiting to pull the trigger with the vanilla extract, the caramel, the finish on this, how easy it is to sip, how thick and how rich it is on the palate, this would be where I think you would want to spend your 70 to 80 bucks. All right, everybody, well, thanks again for watching this episode of the Mash and Drum Whiskey Room as we looked at the third release in the Booker's Small Batch Collection for 2019, named Booker's Country Ham. Easily my favorite batch of the year so far. If you haven't yet, hit the subscribe button below. Please hit that like button. If you haven't yet, find me on Instagram and find me on Twitter. Let me know if you've had this yet, what you think of it, if you think it's as better than these two as I do. And as I always say, it is not about the whiskey, it's the people you share it with. I'm going to have some more country ham. I'll see you next time.